Bear Grylls is a real-life hero we've all seen performing extraordinary feats during our childhood, feats that left us in awe. He accomplished things we could never even imagine, and he did it all with sheer mental strength. But did you know that Bear Grylls wasn't always like this? The man who now seems fearless and resilient was once weak, anxious, and even battled depression. In his autobiography, Mud, Sweat, and Tears, Bear Grylls shares that fear often forces you to appear tough on the outside while making you weak and vulnerable inside. Bear Grylls' greatest fear was heights, also known as acrophobia. Yet, remarkably, just a few years later, he would be seen jumping from helicopters, descending from great heights in the opening of each episode of his show. Bear Grylls was part of the UK's Special Forces, the SAS, where he gained significant parachuting experience, having jumped from planes countless times. At the age of 21, during a mission in Zambia in 1996, Bear Grylls jumped from a height of 16,000 feet. However, this time his parachute didn't open. Right after the jump, he waited for the right moment and pulled the parachute cord, but he kept plummeting rapidly. When he looked up, he saw that the parachute hadn't fully deployed. He desperately tugged at the parachute cords, trying to get it to open completely, but amidst all this, he crashed into trees, hit the ground, and everything went dark in an instant. He landed on his back, and the moment he hit the ground, excruciating pain overwhelmed him. Despite falling from such a height, he remained conscious. Unable to move, he lay there crying out loudly, hoping his comrades would come to rescue him. The pain was so unbearable that he felt death would have been a better outcome, but it didn't come. He lay there in agony for a long time until his companions finally took him to a hospital in Africa. He recalls that the doctor injected something into his back, and gradually the pain began to subside. He thought he was recovering and attempted to get up. Just then, the doctor informed him that he would never walk again. Upon hearing this, it felt like the world had ended for the 21-year-old Bear Grylls. When he saw the X-ray, it was evident that 3 of his spinal bones, T8, TT, T10, and T12, were broken. These bones are among the strongest in the human back, and they were completely shattered. The young man who used to climb mountains now couldn't even walk to the bathroom. He says that the pain of breaking those bones in the parachute fall was nothing compared to the year he spent in the hospital, enduring the agony of healing those bones. Lying on the hospital bed, he often thought that he might never walk again. His life had always revolved around adventure, exploring new places and discovering new things. This injury had stripped him of his very purpose for living. The thought kept him awake at night, drenched in sweat from anxiety, struggling to breathe. Each night he was consumed by regret, self-pity, and even self-hatred. 2 months passed, but instead of improving, his condition worsened. The pain intensified and his body stiffened. Observing his condition, he became even more negative, and nothing seemed to bring him joy anymore. He would get angry and cry over the smallest things. Slowly, he began to slip deeper into depression. Those who knew him thought that Bear Grylls was a very positive person, mentally tough, and would undoubtedly face this challenge with courage and optimism. But that wasn't the case. He was only 21 years old and deeply afraid. He had no idea how he would spend the rest of his life or what he would do. He could see all his dreams crumbling before his eyes. One late night, as he lay in bed, his eyes fell on a photo frame at a distance. It was a picture of Mount Everest. Since childhood, it had been Bear Grylls and his father's dream to one day climb Mount Everest. Seeing that photo gathering dust, he felt as if his dreams were also gathering dust, something he couldn't bear. That night, all alone, he mustered all his courage, stood up, and with the help of crutches, walked over to the photo frame and wiped off the dust. As he did so, he began to wonder how he could give himself the courage to live. This thought settled deeply in his subconscious mind, giving him hope and a reason to live. The next morning, he remembered something his grandmother used to say: "Bear, son, whatever happens in life happens for the best. It's only humans who find reasons to make themselves sad and troubled. Whenever you find yourself in trouble, always remind yourself that whatever is happening is by God's will, and God never allows anything wrong to happen this time." He truly grasped the depth of her words and felt the truth in them. He realized that he could have died in that accident from that injury, but he survived. This meant that God had something better planned for him. From that point on, he stopped worrying about what the future held. Whether he would walk again or not, or return to the Special Forces, none of these worries troubled him anymore. As his overthinking decreased, his mind found peace. His stress and negativity began to fade. Before healing his body, he started by healing his mind. As his mind grew stronger, his body started to heal on its own. His wounds began to heal faster, and the speed of his bone recovery increased. He recalled something his closest friend, Ed EMS, once told him often: "God has the power of birth, death, and then rebirth in his hands, and this injury has given you a rebirth." Bear Grylls says, "Now I am like a new child, worrying about nothing, neither the past nor the future, just grateful for the present." He believes that life doesn't often give us a second chance, but if it does, we should be incredibly grateful. He was grateful for his life, for his broken back, and for his dreams. He took that picture of Mount Everest in his hands and boldly proclaimed, "As soon as I recover, "I will climb Mount Everest and touch its peak." If anything helped him most in overcoming that depression, it was his goal, his aim, and his purpose. Until that moment, he had no reason to live, but lying there, unable to walk, he promised himself that he would climb Mount Everest. When he told people around him that he wanted to climb Mount Everest after recovering, they dismissed his words, but his goal was crystal clear. Now he had to recover as quickly as possible. Both his body and mind had a goal to work on together. 3 months after the accident, the pain began to lessen. 8 months later, he was discharged from the hospital. In a year, he was fully recovered. However, the doctors forbade him from returning to Special Forces training. Without a job, he had no money, but to fulfill his dream, he needed 2.5 million rupees to train and buy the necessary equipment for climbing Mount Everest. He wrote proposals to around 250 companies for sponsorship, but he faced rejection from all of them. Even after facing rejection 250 times, he didn't give up. He knocked on many doors, but disappointment was all he received until the SASFA Special Forces Help Organization helped him realize his dream. 18 months after the parachuting accident on May 16, 1998, he made his childhood dream a reality. His journey to climb Mount Everest is a story in itself. This journey was far from easy. 4 people from his team lost their lives, and he faced near-death experiences twice. But somehow, he became the youngest Briton to reach the summit of Mount Everest at the age of 23. Afterward, his story gained widespread recognition. People began inviting him to seminars as a speaker. Several documentaries were made about him, and eventually, Discovery Channel gave him the opportunity that brought him worldwide fame, which is when everyone started recognizing him from Man vs. Wild, and perhaps you are one of them. If you enjoyed this video, please support the channel by liking the video and clicking the subscribe button. Also, turn on the bell notification so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Thank you for watching.